Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Potty Planet Entertainment. My name is Chris, and in case you don't know, I review movies and I rank them on a scale of 0 to 100 in increments of 5. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the most important movies in my life, Spider-Man. I grew up on Spider-Man. It came out back in '02, and I loved it when I was a kid. I used to watch it every time it came on TV. I loved this movie, and I love it maybe even a little bit more now that I can watch it from an adult's eyes and I can appreciate it more from a filmmaking perspective rather than just a fan perspective. I really like it. It really holds up. Let's talk about Spider-Man. So, it came out in 2002 and it stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Willem Dafoe, Cliff Robertson, Rosemary Harris, and J.K. Simmons. It was directed by Sam Raimi and it was produced by Avi Arad, Kevin Feige, and Stan Lee. You know the story of Spider-Man. It's about a teenager who gets picked on a lot, not very popular in his school, who gets bit by a radioactive spider that gives him spider powers, and he decides to use those powers as a force of good to become a superhero for the city of New York. All the while, his best friend's father, who's the head of Oscorp, which is a research company, he goes insane after an experiment gone wrong, and he uses his technology to make himself into a supervillain known as the Green Goblin to terrorize New York City, and Spider-Man is out on a mission to take him down. Spider-Man. Look, Spider-Man was revolutionary. It was. It revolutionized this superhero genre. Before X-Men and Spider-Man, superhero movies just weren't really very good. They didn't really quite know how to get them. They were usually very corny and just not that good. But X-Men and Spider-Man really showed other filmmakers, film enthusiasts, film critics that superhero movies can be really good. And if it weren't for movies like Spider-Man and X-Men, we wouldn't have the MCU. So you gotta appreciate this movie. And this movie holds up very, very well. This movie aged fantastically. I think if it came out today, people might not appreciate it quite as much because it's not made the same way as a typical MCU movie. Superhero movies have changed. However, at the time, this movie really revolutionized superhero filmmaking. And when you watch it today, it doesn't get worse. But I will admit that it probably came out today, I think the reception would be very different. But it still holds up. It's still a great movie. I love it. Let's talk about it. So, like I said, I did grow up with this movie. I used to watch it every time it came on TV. I loved it. Spider-Man was always one of my favorite superheroes. I had toys, pajamas. I went as Spider-Man for Halloween a few times when I was a kid. And Willem Dafoe used to scare the crap out of me when I was a kid. I loved this movie, but whenever Willem Dafoe would do those scenes where he would talk to himself, because he has like these two conflicting personalities. One side of him is the good, and one side of him is the evil. And the evil side is what's making him do all the bad stuff. And he talks to himself in the mirror. The good side talks to the bad side. And he plays those scenes so well that when I was a kid, it used to scare me so bad. I would have to leave the room for those scenes and then come back when they were over. But I loved him as the Green Goblin, and I had him as an action figure. I wish I still had it, but I had action figures of Spider-Man from this movie and Green Goblin from this movie that I used to love. My mom even put him on one of my birthday cakes one year when I was a kid. I wish I still had him, because I bet maybe the Green Goblin one might be worth a little bit of money. Maybe. I don't know. And this movie came out, so they filmed this movie right before 9/11, and then it came out after 9/11 in '02. And there was a promo, like a teaser promo for this movie that featured the Twin Towers, but they had to pull it from TV after 9/11 happened. And I don't know if this was done on purpose, but it kind of seems like they were trying to film this movie around the Twin Towers, or at least they were editing it around the Twin Towers, because the Twin Towers, you can tell that they're trying to avoid it, but there's a few times if you look really closely where the Twin Towers do sneak into the film. Because I'm assuming the movie is supposed to take place in '02. I'm assuming. But if you look real closely, there are like 4 or 5 times where the Twin Towers do sneak into the movie. You just gotta look real close for it. This is also the first movie to gross $100 million at the box office on opening weekend, and that's including inflation. That shows you how big this was. I was so young when this movie came out. I was born in '99, so I do not remember the release of this movie, but I guarantee you I would have been all for it at the time if I was a little older. This movie really was revolutionary. This movie also has really good pacing. This movie does not waste time. It does not waste time. It gets to the point, and it's a 2-hour movie, but it doesn't really feel that long because the pacing is so good. This movie does not waste your time. It gets to the point without rushing it, which is really good. I also like how Spider-Man has natural web spinners. So in pretty much every other rendition of Spider-Man, he has this little device he built on here that like shoots out webs, and he has to renew the cartridges in it. In this one, they did away with that, and he could just shoot it at his wrist. That makes sense to me. I mean, if he has all these spider powers, why couldn't he do that as well? I never understood the device. It just didn't make any sense to me. Also, the music by Danny Elfman is fantastic. I love the theme song to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. It's so good. It's one of my all-time favorite scores. This movie is one of the most well-casted films of all time. Tobey Maguire, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man and Peter Parker of all time. J.K. Simmons, probably like top 10 greatest casting choices of all time as the head of the Daily Bugle. He crushes J. Jonah Jameson. I just, you can't see anyone else playing that role. You can't. Kirsten Dunst is really good in it. James Franco's really good in it. Willem Dafoe, one of the greatest actors of all time, he lobbied for this role. They actually weren't going to originally give this to him, but he really wanted to play this character, and you could tell he really wants to be there. Now we just got to make him the Joker. Make it happen, Hollywood, please. I also love how it's not the Goblin's first appearance, but his second appearance in the movie was at this parade when he flies in and he starts terrorizing the parade, and Spider-Man swoops in to fight him. When you see, they get these fantastic, like, far away shots of him. Like, the camera's here and he's far away off in the distance. And that is terrifying because what they do with that is that they make you see it from the people on the ground's point of view. So it's just as scary for you as it is for them. And I love that intro so much. This movie also has some good quotes in it. Quiet. Let mom and dad talk. That's a good one. And when I was a kid, I used to always say, impressive. I used to say that to people all the time because the Green Goblin says that to Spider-Man. I used to say that when I was a kid to be sarcastic. The action is fantastic. It's all within camera. You can see everything. Wide, beautiful shots of these fight sequences. Every action sequence is marvelous. The special effects are really good. They hold up pretty well. There might be a few green screen shots where people kind of can kind of see a little bit, but the special effects in this movie really hold up. It's an emotional movie. It's got some really good heart. You really care about the characters. The characters are relatable. Harry is the loser. Peter is the loser. Harry is the rich kid that has daddy issues. And MJ has an abusive father. And so every kid can kind of find a way to relate to these characters. And they're really good together. All three of them have good chemistry. You buy them as friends. You want to see good things happen to them. It's a fun movie, too. This movie doesn't have an overly serious tone. This movie does know how to have fun. It's kind of a lighthearted movie. I wouldn't go so far as to say, it's like Thor Ragnarok, but it does have a lighthearted feel to it. The relationships between the characters are quickly and effectively set up. Like I said, the pacing for this movie is really good, and so you immediately get a sense of where all these characters are with each other. It does it very, very well. I also love how Willem Dafoe does his own stunts. I've heard that he does like over 90% of his own stunts in this movie, and he did that in Spider-Man No Way Home as well. He said he would only come back to play the character again if they let him do his own stunts. I love and respect Willem Dafoe as an artist so much. He is amazing as this character. I also love the final fight between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. It is brutal. They start fighting in like this greenhouse thing. abandoned building that's got like all this moss growing in it, and oh my gosh, it is brutal. You feel those punches. Tobey Maguire sells these hits. It reminds me very much of the fight scene between Harrison Ford and the thuggy slave driver in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. When this big, muscular dude punches Harrison Ford, he sells those hits. And Tobey Maguire does a fantastic job of making you go, oh! It's really, really effective. And the costumes are great. The costumes are fantastic. A lot of people like to complain about Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin suit, saying that it kind of looks like a Power Ranger villain. Hey, I love it, all right? So shut up, okay? It's awesome. You don't know what you're talking about. And I love the Spider-Man suit as well. It is really, really good. This isn't a perfect movie. I do have a few cons with it. Not a lot. Let's go ahead and get into it. So in the opening scene of this movie, you see Peter running alongside his school bus. He wants to get on the school bus. All the kids are on there laughing at him. And the school bus driver keeps driving, and he's looking in the mirror like, I don't buy that for a second. That dude would get fired. Also, it is pretty silly how the military would fund the Green Goblin suit. Like, I buy them funding the glider, but I don't buy them not looking at that suit and being like, we don't want to give you money for that. I also don't understand how Peter makes the suit. Where would he get the money for that? How would he have the skill to make it? Doesn't make any sense. Also, and this is just a plot hole I've noticed with Spider-Man in general, but have you noticed that whenever Spider-Man puts on his mask or his gloves or the feet part of the suit, it looks like one piece after he puts it on? Like, if I put the mask on, there's like no like break here where like you can clearly see where the suit and the mask are separated. It looks like it connects to the suit. Has anybody else noticed that with Spider-Man? That's not just this movie. That's just Spider-Man in general. That's very weird. Okay, so this movie used a lot of blue screen to help them, like, you know, get shots where like they're high up in the sky or whatever. And the problem with it is that part of Spider-Man's suit is blue. And so when you put that blue against a blue screen, it turns it black. And when you notice during some of these scenes, you'll notice that Spider-Man's suit goes from red and blue to red and black. That's because of the blue screen, and it is noticeable. And I also, and this is a spoiler for the end of the movie, for anyone who may not have seen this movie. At the end of the movie, you probably know, I don't know why you haven't seen this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, go see it. It's amazing. But the Green Goblin gets stabbed by his own glider. And I noticed that it's the glider is very low on him. It like stabs him in like his like upper thighs or pelvic area. Like it doesn't, and he dies. But I would buy that if it went into his stomach. But it goes like really low on him, like into his crotch area, or maybe even slightly lower than that. And so I don't really buy him dying from that, especially as quick as he did. But my problems with this movie are far and few between. This movie means a lot to me. I loved this movie as a kid. I love it now. I would cherish this film for the rest of my life. My DVD here is actually from when the movie came out, which is pretty cool. It's very old, very old. That thing's almost as old as I am. But it still worked great. I love Spider-Man so much, and I'm going to give it a 90. Look forward to my review for Spider-Man 2 coming very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Pod Planet Team for more. Hit the like button. Leave a review, suggestions, and comments down below. Follow me on Instagram at Pod Planet Team for channel updates, and much love.